Feels almost as though every other day there's another high profile case with regards to cancer. I sometimes wonder if it's just me who is noticing very strange patterns. And it can't be. I have to assume that this is occurring across the board. But it's very difficult to make sense of what could be anecdotal. So the fact that one person may see something doesn't mean that this is necessarily high profile. But it caught my attention just recently, this case, which was in the BBC News with regards to Sir Chris Hoy. And he was praised for his courage as he reveals that he has terminal cancer. So this is quite significant because Sir Chris Hoy is a six-time Olympic cycling champion. So this is a very fit and well gentleman. And it seems out of the blue, he has now got terminal prostate cancer. He is only 48 years old. Now, it's not that this cannot happen. It just seems that the frequency is unbelievably high. We think about what happened in the royal family. It just makes you wonder as to what exactly is going on. And we can only pray for him and his family as they just in case I've been lost, it seems as though out of the blue, I had lost my signal. I don't know why. But let's continue with regards to our discussion about very rare cancers. And as I was saying, this is very, very significant in terms of what we're seeing across the board. As we said, Sir Chris Hoy is therefore, he has now been diagnosed with stage four, so primary cancer of his prostate, which has already spread to his bones, meaning that it is stage four. And this in a 48-year-old is extremely significant. It's not something that we should therefore ignore. Here is what I think is quite relevant in the midst of is my own story with regards to what I think could be quite a relevant pattern that just in case I seem to be having signal problems here, but this is a case of adenocarcinoma, mixed adenosquamous cell carcinoma of the prostate with paired sequencing in primary and liver metastases. Now, the reason I'm highlighting that case is because there are some characteristics about prostate cancer that are very important to consider. Now, as I show you this paper here, it will give you some light as to why I think this is so significant. When you look at this, it's that prostate cancer, as we know, is very commonly, and they're presenting a case of a 63-year-old man who had metastatic prostate cancer. And this you have to remember is a case report in a 63-year-old man because it was unusual patterns that they had noticed. Now, what was important here is that on balance, when you looked at this case, there were some patterns around the case that really stood out as being quite important. And one of the things that we have to say is that the types of cancer that you normally get in terms of prostate cancer is that adenocarcinoma is about 95% of prostate cancer cases. On the other hand, squamous cell carcinoma is very rare, accounting for less than 1% of cases. So the reason this became a case report was because it wasn't just adenocarcinoma, but was a combination of adenocarcinoma and squamous cell carcinoma in a 63-year-old man that had spread. This was very, very unusual. And this unusual pattern is what caused them to write a case report. So, a case report is usually done when there is something that is so unusual that clinicians want to share it with others. And in this case, that of a mixed adenocarcinoma with squamous cell carcinoma of the prostate that metastasized was so unusual that they wanted to share it. Now, what are the chances that a random doctor will come across one of these rare cases in their routine work? That's exactly what happened to me. I happened to run into a case that was just complex, wasn't responsive to antibiotics, and I went and looked at the histology. And this was a combination of adenocarcinoma and squamous cell carcinoma of the prostate. At the time, I wasn't even aware that you could have that. But quickly looking at case reports made me realize that, oh my goodness, I have stumbled into one of these very unusual cases. What it indicates is that it's unlikely that I was just unlucky. It probably means that this is occurring at a far higher rate than anyone cares to acknowledge. The question still remains as to why. Anyone who knows and has been following my work will recognize that I always ask about the elephant in the room. This elephant, it seems, was so greased and lubed up that they forced him through the door so that he fits in this room and we don't know how to get him out. This in itself is a very serious situation. And you have to understand, I'm asking these questions because I am concerned that this is extremely relevant. We need to get the histology to look carefully at the patterns as to why it appears that cancer seems to be occurring in such a significant way. And critically, it's occurring in a way that it is presenting with advanced stage cancer as first presentation. This leads me to the fact that I am talking about the COVID storm. And in this presentation here, I'm looking at statins. People may think that statins are just about cholesterol, but in reality, statins have an impact on the immune system. They're anti inflammatory. And critically, they have an impact on macrophages. One of the things that has come out in the research, and I have the link in the description with regards to cancer research, or what I'm concerned about with the pandemic and the elephant, is that macrophage activation can lead to metastatic cancer quite significantly and cause even early stage cancer to spread before it goes through the usual routine. This is very significant. You have to remember that what people are describing is when they use the description turbo cancer, for which there is no formal diagnosis like that, they oftentimes mean that the person has presented with very advanced stage cancer without the opportunity of being picked up early for the options of surgery, radiotherapy, or chemotherapy. That seems to be the pattern that is occurring, and it raises the question as to why. Based on how the immune system is affected, especially with some of the characteristics of some of the therapies that have been used in the past few years, To me, this is not a surprise, but it raises the question again. At what point will this be thoroughly investigated? At what point will the questions be asked? Who is going to bell this cat? Who is going to make sure that this is not just the tip of the iceberg and what we're seeing is the beginning of an avalanche? If we wait another few years, and this is what I think it is with regards to a problem with the immune system and the ability of the immune system to deal with cancer, this is going to touch every single person in the context of loved ones, family, friends, co workers. Is that what we want? Or do we actually want to force those questions to be asked now to see if there's any chance that we could mitigate what could be a huge, horrendous disaster that will affect every single one of us? Let us hope that my pleas are wrong, because if they are right, there's very little that we'll be able to do if we have not tried to mitigate immediately. Thank you.